Should the Fed chair quit to save the central bank's independence? Economist Mohamed El-Erian argues that Jerome Powell should resign to protect the Federal Reserve from political interference, even as markets hit record highs. But if Powell steps down, will the next chair face the same relentless political pressure? And what does that mean for the Fed's future?
Look, as you can imagine, I've discussed this with lots of people in markets, in the policy world, and they split into two, Scott. Those who vehemently disagree with me and those who agree with me but don't want to go public. We all agree on the importance of central bank independence. We all agree that we are far away from the first best, whereby Powell completes his term and doesn't get attacked. What we disagree on is, in the world of second best, what is the least costly option for the Fed? Is it Powell staying and the attacks not just deepening but widening? You saw Speaker Johnson get into the act this week, and you risk a fundamental long-term damage to the independence of the central bank. Or alternatively, he steps down, de-escalates the situation, and yes, there is a cost to independence in the sense that the chair has stepped down, but you don't get the deep intrusion into the institution that undermines its operational autonomy.
I just don't get it. I mean, so he should leave because he's being attacked by the very person who put him in the job in the first place? The precedent of that alone is slippery.
He should leave because he is the magnet of a growing number of investigations into an institution that risks losing its independence. That's why he should leave. He should have the independence of the central bank as his primary objective right now.
What do you mean the growing number of investigations? The building? I mean, come on. It's like,
okay,
would we be talking about the building if he was about ready to cut rates?
So let's talk about the building. You had Secretary Bessent talk about the need to investigate non-monetary policy issues. You had Speaker Johnson talk about maybe we should look into the act, and that's a very consequential statement. You have a ton of things hanging over the Fed: the policy mistake of inflation, the banking issues in California, the allegation of insider trading. There's a ton of things that people can investigate, and in the process, they will weaken the independence of the central bank. This is way beyond the building. It is what Steve Bannon called attacking across the board. So yes, I am worried about the independence of the central bank.
And then the next person who assumes the role doesn't do what the president wants. He takes the incoming fire. And then what happens? We just repeat ourselves over and over and over and over in a job that is supposed to be the most independent of politics in Washington.
That is the risk. But again, I stress, Scott, when you're in the world of second best, you need to figure out what is the least costly option. There is no first best. We all would love to have a first best. We all would love for Chair Powell to finish his term in May and for the Fed not to be attacked. But that's not the world we're living in. And I doubt you believe that that's the world we're living in.
Do you think he's been a good Fed chair?
I think he's made some major mistakes. I think the transitory inflation was a mistake. I think the late in hiking interest rates was a mistake. I think what happened to the banks in California under the very nose of the supervisors, that was a mistake. And his communication hasn't been that good. There are lots and lots of studies that show that when he is in his press conference, the market is much more volatile than it's been under any other Fed chair.
Who should get credit for the fact that through all of this, the thick and thin of inflation and hiking and this, that, and the other, that I got the market here at a record high, extending it. The Dow may close at a new record high. The labor market has remained solid. As I said, the credit markets have remained calm. He and they don't get any credit for where we are through all of that. Not to mention the fact that most of this happened post-COVID, and it was skewed by the events of COVID itself. He didn't cause the supply chain issues that happened during the pandemic, and then he had to deal with it, not to mention what many have said is the flawed policy of the prior administration, pumping all of the money into the system on top of money, on top of money, on top of money. He didn't do any of that. He had to deal with all of it, though.
He was late in reacting. Look, he warned us in August 2022, you will remember this, about pain. He expected the economy to go into recession. It has surprised us. Who are we thankful to? Corporate America. Earnings, innovation, strong balance sheet, entrepreneurial. We have outpaced every single other advanced economy. It is about corporate America. And the marketplace is making a very rational bet. It says, I know the sovereign side is messy. Trade tariffs, the Fed, I know it's messy, but I'm going to focus on corporate America. And this ability to differentiate between corporate America and sovereign America is the reason why we are going to have a 13th record high. And if you don't believe me, look at where gold is. Look at where the dollar is. The gold has hit record after record, and the dollar is still languishing. So if you look at anything associated with sovereign America,
the president wants a weaker dollar.